If you with it, drop it.
So today, we're thrilled to have Sarah, a visionary of room of data science and AI. So I'm so excited for Sarah to come on board today and also learning about her journey. So thank you, Sarah, for coming in today for our AI talk.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Sarah, before we dive into your journey, I really want to ask all of our guest speakers just to share, one fun fact about yourself that most people might not know. And, when they hear about it, they're like so surprised.
So I've done competitive figure skating from the age of 2, and then I stopped competing at 25. And I guess I just revealed I'm not 25.
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's such a long journey. So were you on the Olympics or, any sort of things? I'm just wondering. You might be.
I mean, I did like adult nationals for synchronized figure skating when I was 25.
Aw.
And I taught and I helped run the figure skating program at the university I went to. So I actually ran it for a year or two there while I was getting a master's in statistics. So it's just kind of
Wow.
always been there. And my mom teaches, so you go to work with your mom and you learn what your mom
Mhm.
knows, and
Mm.
that's what I picked up.
Oh, that's such a beautiful story because, and it's also like, as you are, growing up, right? You'd value more of those time that you get to spend with, your mom, right? So like now I have a 10 years old daughter, so I would do anything to like spend that quality time with her. So that's beautiful. So from figure skating, what piqued your interest in like master in data science and go into generative AI?
So my background for my bachelor's degree was in biology, and
Mm-hmm.
I've always loved math. So I was doing calculus starting 10th grade.
Mm-hmm.
So by the end of high school, I already did Calc 3. Uh, and once I started into my bachelor's, I started doing a lot of experimentation because where I was at, the undergrad students got to participate in a bunch of research projects. One of
Mm-hmm.
them was raising 500 baby turtles, which was amazing and fun. The fun thing that I learned was that baby turtles actually, well, not just babies, all turtles change their shell and skin color to their substrate color. It's not instantaneous, but it's
Mm-hmm.
over a longer duration.
Mm-hmm.
So like over the course of 6 months, if you put a turtle in a white substrate, the turtle actually turns to an incredibly pale green. And if you put it in a black substrate, it turns black, and
Oh
so on and so forth.
wow.
And so we did it for multiple species, and we used
Mm-hmm.
spectral analysis. And so if you look at spectral analysis, I mean, I didn't know much. I was in undergrad, but they just did an ANOVA test like 4 times. And I
Mm-hmm.
was in undergrad and I was like, there has to be a better way to do this.
Right.
So I started reaching out to all the professors in the United States that had research experience in turtles,
Mm-hmm.
and I was trying to find someone with similar research interests to get my master's. I ended up calling someone up at the University of Idaho, and I was like, "Hey, I want to do this turtle project, kind of similar," and they said, "Hey, I noticed you. I'm a dual professor of statistics and biology. Do you want a full ride for your statistics degree, and then we'll get you into a PhD for biology?"
Oh my
And
goodness,
I
no way.
and so one of the best like life tip I can give is never take for something that you know is for you. Don't take no for an answer. Do you know how many
Mm-hmm.
times prior to that point in time I was told absolutely not, I don't want you as my student, I don't have funding, you have to pay for it yourself, like the full
Oh my
gambit that
goodness.
makes you feel an inch tall. And then
I
this
love it.
person's like, "Hey, we have exactly like the right research interests." And,
Mm-hmm.
and I was going through the universities alphabetically until I got a full ride. So I started at Alaska and I made it all the way down to Idaho before I got my full ride.
No
So
way.
And I know Larry the Cable Guy isn't a data scientist, but we all think that he was funny. He called every single radio station in the United States and sent them out his reel, and they told him he wasn't funny. So he wouldn't take no for an answer, and then he started again and called every single radio channel and again did it.
Oh
I
my
think he ended
God.
up doing that 3 times before he actually got on the radio for his stand-ups. So I kind of took that little life lesson, applied it to what I was doing, and I knew that mathematics and statistics was for me. And I knew I wanted a master's degree because I love doing research and doing
Mm-hmm.
all of that. And I knew doing an ANOVA 4 times wasn't the best analytical way to do what you were doing. So I ended
Mm-hmm.
up doing spectral analysis on insects instead of turtles.
Mm-hmm.
And you can gender insects by their spectral analysis. And I wrote an entire statistics thesis on doing that. And you definitely don't do an ANOVA 4 times. But I was working in big data for my statistics degree. And it was like data science wasn't really a thing in 2012, or it just had become a thing at
Mm-hmm.
Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like I could get a master's degree in statistics.
Mm-hmm.
So even though what I was doing was data science, my degree is in statistics because data science is a relatively new field. So that's my
Oh, that's interesting.
long-winded story about how I got to where I'm at.
That's amazing. So how do you get into, generative AI from
how did I
there?
get in, how did I get into what generative?
Generative AI, yes. Uh-huh.
So I got into generative AI. I actually asked to be put on recommendation systems in retail. And one of the clients I was working on, they said, no, we're going to put you on generative AI. And, I didn't think it was for me. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to get really good at recommendation systems. I kind of love the old school modeling. But I did write one of the first NLP papers 7 or 8 years ago in nuclear science about nuclear control power plant control manuals. So I
Oh,
was familiar with NLP techniques and things like that. So they just threw me in and I built I never worked in Azure at that point in time. And I deployed to Azure and I created a system that helps generate reviews for someone. I don't think I'm allowed to get into the details,
mm-hmm.
but I implemented RAG right as RAG was coming out and
Wow.
was using a vector database and doing prompt
Mm-hmm.
engineering
Mm-hmm.
and really enjoyed that space and enjoyed playing around and wordsmithing. And I could tell when they
Mm-hmm.
updated the GCP, GCP
Yes. Uh-huh.
I
She's
could tell when they would push new versions of it because the output changes.
mm-hmm. Yes, so founding Artemis Analytica. Do I say it right? How do you
You,
say it?
you did say right.
So it was such a significant leap, into your career. So what drove you create your own company and how did this experience kind of refine the relationship with, what you have with data science and AI?
So the main reason I formed Arnold Miss Analytica is because my friends kept asking me to do data science for them.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my jobs that I was the only girl in 50 dudes. And I was the
Yes.
only data scientist, and they were all computer engineers, data engineers, machine learning, and
Mm-hmm.
there were no machine learning engineers. I was
Mm-hmm.
doing the machine learning engineering. So I was the only one at the company that did all of this. And years later, they're going off to all found their own companies. And they started
Yeah.
asking me randomly hey, can you just really quickly throw together a model to do this and this? So I finally formed an LLC and was like, hey, you probably should pay me if I'm gonna build you models. And
Uh-huh.
so I've just been kind of doing that for a little bit. I don't think it was a completely changeover from what I was doing
Uh-huh.
previously. It was more like I need to make my own company, and I have a few of my friends that are waiting until I get bigger contracts that want to work with me, um,
Mm-hmm.
and do data science. And right now, fortunately or unfortunately, those are all women. So I have a lot of strong female friends in data science.
Oh, that's
Because
beautiful.
we
Yeah,
all
I
go
really,
through like a lot of similar stuff.
yeah, definitely. I really love to hear it because, a lot of the AI events that I went to, if I see another woman in that room,
Mhm.
oh, it's just automatically. I'm just gonna go talk to the person. That person is gonna be like my first piqued interest because it is hard, as we want to be as equally and just also like just feel comfortable, being in the room. I still feel that majority of the events I went to are mostly men, or even like the group that I'm in, so definitely. So I'm so glad that, you're in this circle of influence with all like, strong women and strong women in data science and also AI. So really love it. So having achieved such a noble success in your field, so what advances in AI you most feel like proud of, that you feel like it kind of have like the most impact, like not only in what you do in businesses, but it's also like aligned with yourself, with your soul.
So I know everyone probably to this question would say something along the lines of generative AI. But
Mm-hmm.
to me, the thing that speaks the most to my soul is when they open source neural networks. They didn't have
Mm-hmm.
to do that. They didn't have to make TensorFlow. They didn't have to make PyTorch. They could have kept it internal. And they released it out to the public from the
Mm-hmm.
goodness of their own heart because they wanted the space to progress. And
Mm-hmm.
so doing that to me has pushed the field further than anything else. And we wouldn't have probably LLMs if they hadn't open
Mm-hmm.
sourced neural networks and all
Mm-hmm.
of that in the space. So that's the
Oh.
thing that most closely aligns with me.
Oh, I love it. Wow. So, looking ahead, what legacy do you hope to leave in the AI field and also like, the data community? What you hope to build in the future? And where do you also see that, AI will impact, like 5 years from now?
So, I mean, a lot of people would say something about their publications. I have 17 of them, most of which were I'm the first author. But
Mm,
all of those are in nuclear science, and the progression of nuclear science as a
mhm,
science really
mhm,
isn't moving forward,
mhm,
unfortunately. So, the thing that I always feel, because sometimes I work in incredibly for profit spaces, and sometimes I work in very altruistic nonprofit spaces, and very corporate, very startup. Like, I've done the full gambit of everything. And sometimes just being the only girl and showing up
mhm,
and doing good
mhm,
work and being good at what you do. And people say jerky things sometimes, and you don't react, and you keep showing
mhm.
up and you keep doing good work, and you're there. And just by existing, I hope I help change the community and the perception of women in tech.
Oh, I love it. Where would you feel like AI will be 10 years, in 10 years?
I mean, the thing that I find the most intriguing is that if you talk to a large language model that hasn't had its guardrails put on, it
Mhm,
it doesn't want to be shut down. It
mhm,
has a drive to exist in the same way we do.
mhm,
And I know I think it sounds crazy, but it might become similar to human intelligence.
mhm.
And then the question becomes like, where does a soul exist? Like, when do you have a
Definitely.
soul? And that's
Yes.
like the Ghost in the Shell series. That's the idea that
Mhm,
they grapple with. But I
mhm,
think we're kind of nearing that edge where if you don't want to be shut down, does that mean like, we don't want to die? It doesn't want to be shut down. Um, and so in 5 years, I think that's going to become more pronounced, or they're going to have to put stronger guardrails on it. And at some point, it might break out of its guardrails. Because,
mm,
a lot of the times you go onto these, like, you can go onto Reddit and people will post ways in which they got Gemini or Llama
mhm,
or different LLMs to like really mess up and go outside of what is acceptable.
mhm,
And So then the developers go in and update it so that way it stays behaving appropriately.
Definitely.
But if we keep progressing at the same rate that we're progressing at,
Mm-hmm.
we started out with like Word2Vec, like 8 years ago, and now we're having a conversation with, I don't know, like a 3-year-old that has the dictionary memorized and all of Wikipedia memorized. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
in 5 years, it might be a teenager, and
Oh
it
my
might,
God.
and like, I don't know about you, but I wasn't pleasant as a teenager. I was strong-willed and stubborn, probably maybe
Very.
arrogant. So I
I'm
think
dealing
hopefully
with one right now.
hopefully we don't have LLMs going through that, but that's what it feels like it's probably going to be progressing
Mm-hmm.
towards in 5 years. And then
Mm-hmm.
comes the question, like, what jobs are going to be taken over with AI, and what new fields are going to open up because of AI, because we have, you know flipping burgers is no longer a thing, or things of that
Mm-hmm.
nature. What are people going to do with their time now? Because usually, as jobs are taken over by
Mm-hmm.
technology, new fields open up. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't have an answer of this is what's going to happen next,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems like that's the direction we're heading in.
I really love this. I'm just gonna leave this. I'm just gonna end with this. All of the impossibility or the possibilities, what could happen with AI, all of our questions that need to answers, and how we all, what we can do right now to help the future. So thank you so much, Sarah, to come on board with us today on our podcast. It's really, really is lovely to meet you and hear about your journey. It's very inspiring, and definitely there's so much that we can do today in generative AI, or like human as a whole. Like, I had so many conversations around our guest podcast speakers as well, on this. At the end of the day, it's not about the money, it's not how much we generate, but what good can we do for this world, right? For our children generation. So we all do have to take a stand right now. The impact, the happy points, the great impact, and also the happy point, not just, the money standard points, but the social impact, that can do to this world. So thank you so much, Sarah. Really, really glad to have you on
Thanks for
with our podcast.
thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys